Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day, and we ask that your name be glorified in all that we do. We ask that we may be continuing in service to you, and so that we may show all that your name is great and that you are great, and show people the truth that is the truth of Christ. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Well, today, of course, is Tuesday of the 12th week of Ordinary Time, and we're here on Tuesday talking more from the book of Genesis. So now we see this powerful moment when Lot and Abram are in the same place, and they both, we can get this image of Lot and Abram being like these sole shepherds, but they weren't. They were basically entrepreneurs. They were business owners, and they owned huge flocks. They owned just a lot of stuff, flocks and tents and everything else. And as we see in this description, what they had was so much that between the two of them, they'd be fighting over land and everything else. You stepped on my land. That tree is on my land. That kind of stuff. So what happened was they decided to separate. Now, one of the things that the Bible is bad at is foreshadowing. Because foreshadowing is always done in a way where you just kind of give a little hint of what is coming, but they always give it away. It's kind of like, if you look in the gospel, they never mention, and then there was the strange behavior of Judas. No, it's always, and there's Judas, the guy who betrayed him. There's Judas, and that's the way Judas is mentioned. Judas Iscariot is mentioned in the Gospels every time. There's Judas, the guy who betrayed him. There's Judas, the guy who betrayed him. So it's always, well, we're seeing that already. So Lot goes a far distance from Abraham, and he ends up in Sodom, and great foreshadowing would say, and found that the place was not what he expected, or something like that. But no, it just is Sodom and the people there, as it says right here. And this was before that the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So much for foreshadowing. There we go. But you can see that. So he moves to Sodom. It's interesting to look at because we have to understand that we're going to eventually look at Sodom and Gomorrah, which is coming up fairly soon, in about 6 chapters. And when we do, we're going to have an understanding of what that was all about. But it really highlights something really important. When you don't have a guiding principle, then you get led astray very easily. And the thing that I always like to bring up, I brought this up a lot, and people seem to like it, is when I was in the Navy, there were 2 kinds of bearings. There was true bearings and there were relative bearings. Now, true bearings are based on the magnetic north, because you have these compasses. So if you are heading, they would say, for example, 000 true, or whatever number, 180 true, 272 true, 96 true, whatever. That meant that where you were going was relative to the magnetic north. So you knew you were heading at 000 true, you knew you were heading north. 180 true, you knew you were heading south. Well, another set of bearings are relative bearings, and those take the same compass points, but they use the ship as the compass point. So the bow of the ship is always 000 relative, no matter where you're going, because it's relative bearing. It's based on the ship. To the directly 90 degrees from the bow off the starboard side is always 090 degrees relative. So that's the reality. And one of the things I often say is that with understanding true bearings, you can navigate the world. Relative bearings, you can get lost in a bathtub. And there is a truth to that. So if you look at the difference, if you're following Christ and you're in prayer relationship with him, you're seeking to grow in faith, you're seeking to grow as he calls you, you're bringing everything to the Lord, you're going to find yourself in the life perspective of maneuvering in true bearings. You're going to follow the right path. But if you cut yourself off from the Lord and you just figure you've got this all figured out yourself, you're going to do things your own way, we don't have to listen to all that old-fashioned stuff anymore, we don't have to do any of that, you're going to end up like relative bearings, and you're going to definitely go way off course. Now, when I was in the Navy, let's just say I knew of a story, I'll put it that way, because I wasn't on board any ship that did this at the time. And there was a ship that the navigator miscalculated. And instead of going to Taiwan, where they were planning to do, all of a sudden, Chinese gunboats from China came attacking the ship. And in doing so, they realized that they were going the wrong way. They didn't follow the right path. We'll talk more right after this. You're listening to St. Anthony Overnight. Don't forget to tell others where they can find our program. You can hear us on WEZE 590 AM and WEZEradio.com at midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time. We then podcast the program on your favorite podcast platform and at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also hear us on our parish website, ST for StAnthonyAlston.org. That's StAnthonyAlston.org. And let others know where they can find us and spread the word and subscribe to our podcast. And don't forget, we are coming from St. Anthony Parish in Alston, Massachusetts. So you have a standing invitation to our 10 o'clock a.m. Mass. You can also find us at StAnthonyAlston.org. That's ST. I say ST, so you know that's how we're spelling Saint. StAnthonyAlston.org. You can also hear the show, and you can connect to the parish. You can donate to the program, do all kinds of things through CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. Well, anyway, we're looking further at this whole separation between Abram and Lot. So there's plenty of land, and Abram is going one way and Lot is going to the other, and he ends up just outside of Sodom and Gomorrah. And we learn later that he was the righteous person. I don't know if that means him specifically or his household, but he specifically is the righteous person who is living in that area. We'll find more about that then and when that comes up. But the other thing is Abram. And it describes Abram as being able to look as far as he could see from the right to the left and see all this land that the Lord had given him. Now, I'm going to be a killjoy for a second. That's a total of 24 miles. Now, granted, you say, well, no, Israel is a lot bigger than 24 miles. Yes, it is. But if you are standing on a plain, or if you are a plain, meaning a flat surface, or for that matter, if you are standing on a ship at sea level and you look to the left and to the right, to the horizon, you can only see 12 miles each direction, so that's 24 miles. Because that's how far the horizon is. Now, of course, they had no way of measuring that. But there's an interesting dynamic that. Now, I'm talking about that when I was in Crestone, Colorado, and I was part of a hermitage, and we were part of this valley that was called Peace Valley. And so I was between two mountain ranges. Now, obviously, you couldn't see beyond the mountain ranges, but we were in a valley. So the valley extended on forever. And, of course, I've been out to sea. And there's an interesting principle where you can, people say that's not possible. Actually, it's quite possible. You can see the curvature of the earth. Now, you actually can't see the earth curve. That is impossible because the earth goes down. You can't see that. But you can see how the sky curves down, especially if there are clouds. You can see how the sky curves down. And when I was out to sea, and of course, we're looking at the Pacific as far as you can see, and just as the sun came up, so it hasn't actually come above the horizon yet. It's just coming up. Just starting to come up. So you just start to see this little bit of light. It feels like you are in a television studio. Literally, it feels like you're on the Truman Show. It feels like you're in a television studio because you can almost see that you're what appears to be a big room. the round room, big, huge room. So as you can see, these dynamics, as Abram's looking over this land, these are the dynamics that are playing themselves out. And he can see so far that he can see the curvature of the earth. In his case, it would mean that the dome was coming to touch the plain, because they understood the sky to be a dome, and above the dome was water where rain comes from, and all that. So that's what he would see. And he would see that in all four directions, actually 360 degrees. So that's what he's looking at. And this is what the Lord has given him and beyond, because clearly he can only see 24 miles in any one direction, but 12 miles in any one direction, 24 altogether at any one time. And here the Lord is giving him so much more than that. But the principle is there. So this is what the Lord is giving him. As far as the eye can see, well, at that point, yes. And he's giving him all this land. Meanwhile, poor Lot is over at down at Sodom and Gomorrah. But we can understand that this whole land is now been given by God to Abram. We'll talk more tomorrow. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you would like to support our program, please consider a donation to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. There are several ways to consider this. One is to purchase any of our merchandise, which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. There are coffee mugs there. There's also my latest book, Encounter Christ in Your Humanity, all of which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also donate to the show directly through either the Donate tab, also at CatholicAudiomedia.com, or by sending a donation through the U.S. Postal Service with your questions and comments at 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's St. Anthony Parish, 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. Finally, the best way you can support our parish is to attend Mass on Sundays at 10 o'clock and be a part of our parish. We thank you for any support you would like to give to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, the sponsoring parish for this media outreach to Catholics and other Christians in the WROL, WEZE, and podcast listening audience. In Cristo vivimos.